craft things, we have we imagine how we want our audience to experience it. Because ultimately, every decision you made, and every decision you made, and every decision every one of us made, when we're creating, it's about trying to create joy or entertainment or some experience in the minds of our audience. So we have a particular view of how that's going to go down in the mind of our audience, and then there's like these marketing materials and things that could put that at risk, and the only reason why we exist is to entertain people, so we don't want to risk that at all. Yeah. But if we never get to speak to people, if they don't even know we exist, we won't have any opportunity.
Yeah, there's a spectrum of what you can spoil, what you can't.
You got to get that. But notice in the trailer, like the trailer was interesting because front-loaded all of the game design pitch, right? That's one of the strongest aspects of Borderlands. So there's like text on screen telling you 4-player co-op and loot split tables and split screen and like pushing those features.
Even also, seeing the vehicle changing colors, as you go through the feature, right. The skins are changing.
Also notice that this time, when we did, there's always the change up you do in a trailer. This time we did it with the villain, right? Handsome Jack. There's now, for the first time, Anthony created this incredible character that now we have a bad guy. We actually have an antagonist.
That was the moment during my interview where I was like, I'm not going to get this job, because they were like, so what did you think about the villain of Borderlands? I was like, who is the villain of? I actually said that out loud. I was like, I don't know who you're talking about. I didn't know if that game had a villain.
And that was kind of the right answer.
Yeah, I didn't know it at the time, but I was like, okay, good.
I was trying to have, we were looking for somebody who was going to be honest about where the story was with Borderlands 1, and we wanted that honest customer view of it that Anthony brought, having not been on the first team. So
your complete lack of experience is a plus.
Well, you know what that means for Borderlands 3, right?
Yeah, well, you just got to get rid of me and get in some random dude. Yeah.
You're obsolete.
Well, also
janitor, what do you think? Okay.
Also, the fact that you didn't well, it's clearly somebody and pick someone wrong.
Yeah, pick some random person. Yeah, it's Steel, right? Yeah, Steel is ostensibly the villain.
Yeah, I made an attempt there. The problem was when I finally put that story together, it was so late in the process that not everybody was embracing everything. And I'm kind of a soft leader. Like, I'm not going to force stuff if people aren't going to buy it. And I should have. I should have forced more of the team to just look. We need the villain to come through. Otherwise, it's
you forget that we lost an entire act.
Yeah,
that's not a third act from the game.
Yeah, there was a whole another section of the first game
and she was going to be there a lot more. So
and I was working on the beginning of the game when I joined the team. You asked me to try to we've got a lot of systems and people don't know how to play the game, and can you work on this? So as I was working on that, I was getting to understand the story, and I was like, okay, so we mentioned Steel in the first 5 minutes, but who the hell is this person? You never see her. I was like, I need some billboards, and I need this, and I need that. And production was like, sorry.
No, we're not gonna do that. Gonna happen. It's weirdly we were almost in that position with Borderlands 2 as well, because from the very beginning, Paul and I are huge fans of System Shock 2, and he worked on BioShock, and I'm a huge fan of that. And those are very villain-driven games, and there's something really nice about a game where your end goal and the thing that's reminding you of the end goal are the same thing, where it's like, GLaDOS, for example, from Portal can be like, ha ha ha, I'm a dick. And then you're remembering, okay, not only is she reminding me that I have a plot goal, which is I should kill this dick, but that she is that dick. So she's reminding me that she doesn't have one. But
she's a robot.
There's something strong about that sort of conceit.
You and robot dicks, what's up?
It's been a big day for me. So we really liked that idea, but there was a beginning of the game, a whole different beginning of the game that was Handsome Jack was running this Coliseum, and you were going to be in it, and he was going to betray you midway through and take all your guns and kick you out into the tundra. And the reason for that initially was let's have Handsome Jack do something personally violent and aggressive to you so that you don't like him, so it's more of a revenge story. And then we sort of changed that around because we weren't doing enough things with making the vault and alien lore matter and stuff like that. So we instead started you off in the tundra, which was cool, but oh shit, now that whole point of our game, the entire point of our game being kill this one guy, you don't ever meet him.
Yeah,
now.
It was because you spent the first 5 to 10 minutes, fighting in his Coliseum, and then you win, you're the grand champion, and then your reward was, look at all these guns, and you're like, yeah, you grab them all, and then he was gonna just be like, yoink, and take them all away, And so
I remember the
We're
character
gonna make you
screen
hate us in
idea
the
we
first
had.
10 minutes, basically.
Right.
It was going to be like the Metroid thing where it's like you're really powerful, now you're not, which is like irritating or whatever. But we had I think it was Mikey had an idea for the character select screen where your cursor, part of me still wishes we had done this, where your cursor was Handsome Jack's gun, and you were going through the train, and the door was open on the train, and all the player characters had their hands tied behind them, as you could see the sort of landscape going by. And the gun was your cursor, and when you would move the cursor to the other Vault Hunters, he would go eeny, meeny, miny, and whenever you chose your character, he'd go mo, boom, and shoot them, and they'd fall out the back of the train, and that would be like the character you'd chosen.
Right.
And that ended up being really hard to do just because, like, wait, am I saying which character I don't want to be because I'm shooting them? Do I have to shoot every character but the one I want?
And what happens if we add characters?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's just meeny, and he like turns around behind him and
20
gets a different
later.
guy. Yeah. Do we have to like patch in more meanies just to get to that?
Well, to finish my little bit
Yeah,
there,
sorry.
part of it was so you spent all this time getting to know Handsome Jack, and then you're out in the tundra, and you were, as far as he was concerned, you were gone and you were worthless, and you weren't an issue anymore. So the whole first act of the game was like, Handsome Jack won't say anything.
Yeah.
You'll kind of have forgotten
Yeah.
about him, but you'll know he's out there.
He
but
thinks
you're
you're
so
irrelevant, which
low.
makes you feel more powerless,
Yeah.
which will
So
hopefully,
when we cut that, we're like, crap, we have no Handsome Jack
We
in
have
the
Steel
first
again.
4 hours of the game.
Yeah. we would, with a great deal of panic, sometimes be like, oh my God, it's Commandant Steel again. You mention him once and then like, wait, who? You know, that kind of shit. And so really hurriedly, kind of in
And
the
what are the
last,
happy side effects of that?
Yeah.
Butt stallion.
Butt Stallion, yeah.
It was the last pickup session we had, and we were just looking for any space to put more Jack in because he had like 1 or 2 lines, and it still didn't feel like there was enough of him. So I went through and found some lines I'd written for assorted other random things. Like there was a period of time where if you respawned from the news stations, Jack would make fun of you, and he had this sequential thing where every time you died, he would spend the money that he had gotten from you dying on more and more extravagant things, like a pony made of diamonds. And we ended up not implementing that stuff, so I was like, shit, I like this joke about Butt Stallion, and then just grabbed it and put it in there. And by the time the game shipped, it
It's
was
also like the Triscuits or when he's
yeah, it was when he's eating
crackers.
pretzels and
pretzels,
like
yeah.
just talking to you while eating pretzels and being like, oh, these are disgusting, which was something Damien ad-libbed. But yeah, like it was weird when the game shipped. I think it was like me and you and like Varnell were the only people that knew that Butt Stallion was a thing. So there were some people who I think might have been getting stuff on Twitter about like, oh, when are we gonna fight Butt Stallion? And they're like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. But yeah, that was a kind of a gamble, but I'm really glad it paid off to the point where people were like, I was disappointed that there was no Butt Stallion. It was like, I was really happy that there was Butt Stallion at all. So
I feel like that's a raid boss waiting to happen.
everybody says that, yeah.
Did you play Tiny Kingdom?
I'm halfway through.
Oh, okay.
You just finished that.
So I'm a cute deal.
You know what I said about spoilers?
I'm not saying anything. I'm just. We have T-shirts. You can go to the Gearbox store and you can buy a Butt Stallion T-shirt.
That's not a spoiler, is it?
No, no.
Oh.
And if you want to like tear it up and pretend it's a boss monster, you can shoot it with guns. And
Yeah, great. I'll just staple it to a real person and kick him to
There
death.
you go. That works.
But look at where its rainbow comes from.
The rainbow.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. Oh boy.
So are we?
Yeah, do we questions or
Yeah,
something?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
So
Anytime,
let's see.
or-
Yeah. So also the colors change.
These were just. Yeah, these were just. Look, we have color now.
Got way more saturated. All right, let's do that.
There we go. Hey.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
just talked.
So, Borderlands questions. There's no microphone, but because this is being recorded,
Yeah, we can probably.
I'll repeat the question.
Oh, okay.
Unless
that's
it's
a
like a
good
minute
idea.
long.
That's a
So
good idea.
you're just going to raise hands and then we'll just pick. Yes, you're the first person I saw.
How did it feel going from Borderlands, where you didn't write it, to Borderlands 2 and using pre-existing characters in a new world to just create your own story?
Sorry, say again. Oh, you repeat.
yeah.
He'll say it again.
How did it feel going from Borderlands 1, which you didn't write, to go to you heard it? So
Yeah.
this is weird.
Yeah. I'll not look at you while you do it.
Yeah, thanks. This is cool. It's like a sex booth. Going to
I'm not crying yet. That can't be right.
Now I feel like we're in
My
transparent
pants are
sex booths
still
and we've got an
on.
audience. So, you didn't write Borderlands 1, and now you're doing Borderlands 2, and you're using characters that you didn't write. How did that feel?
It was really, really stressful because
We also just rewrote.
Because I was
them all, too.
judging him the whole
yeah,
time.
yeah. It was really stressful because didn't write these characters. This is the first project I've ever worked on, and it's like a really big, high-profile thing. Like most people when they come into the games industry, your first project takes you 4 years, and it doesn't.
Gets canceled.
It gets
Yeah.
canceled.
Yeah, it gets canceled. I had 2 canceled on me before.
Yeah,
I
and
got
you
my
get real
first one.
disillusioned and like, ah, fuck. And then finally, after you really put in your time, then you get a game that comes out, and that game is bad. And then the next game is like pretty good, and then you're like, ah, I made it. But like this first one, I was like, oh shit, like Borderlands 2 is not going to get canceled. Like clearly, this is a big deal, and I have
I almost
no.
canceled it.
Oh,
just
did
to
you really?
spite you.
Just to spite you. And I was scared shitless, and I also came from a games journalism background where I made my money saying that other people's game stories were ass. So, what happens if I make one that's also ass? Shit. So I spent the majority of my time being really scared. A lot of times, like about half of the dialogue for Tannis and Scooter, who were Mikey's characters from the first game, he just wrote about half of their dialogue in the end game. So that was a good way to ease it off. It was like, haha, all right, you know how these characters because you fucking made them, so great. A lot of the other characters, it was like actually, yeah, there's a lot of, I'll say debates, but I mean they were good-natured, passionate arguments about where certain characters should go. Because again, I came as just an audience member, and I was like, man, I don't like Claptrap at all. Like he just kind of strikes me as annoying. So like I kind of want to change the way he is.
He's supposed to be though.
Right. No, I totally get that. But yeah, we would have discussions about like I don't know, like that's kind of who he is. Yeah, that's the point
We had
of
a
him.
lot of arguments over
Yeah,
the first hour.
because I wanted to make him like the Claptrap from the Claptrap episodes, who was just this really angry, dickish kind of diva. And then there was like Randy and Eddings, the guy who voices Claptrap, were like, I don't know if we want the mascot of our series to be an enormous dick that people don't like. And I'm like, that's a good point. And we tried to sort of compromise
After
there.
you were really upset.
After I was really upset about it. Then I was like, all right, touche. But yeah, I'm actually really happy with where we ended up with a lot of those guys. But thankfully, there were enough new characters that I felt like, okay, if I'm fucking up those guys, that's just me being bad. It's not, me letting down a bunch of people who already created those characters and feel, ownership over them. That's just me just sucking. So I was more comfortable in that realm.
Well, the other interesting thing that we did with Borderlands 2, that I'm stealing a little bit of your
Go ahead.
question here, but
I've been talking too long. I need to get water.
we
Come over there. Yeah.
See you later.
we wanted to have we made this bold decision of screw those original Vault Hunters. We're making 4 new ones. But there was a lot of concern but I love Roland. He was my guy. Where's Lilith? I played her for hundreds of hours. And that's a legitimate concern. So we knew they couldn't just vanish. And so that's why we decided to put them in as characters. But then we had this interesting challenge of, in the first game, Roland was entirely, it's like Christmas. That was like his character.
Yeah. You would get a headshot and you go boom, and you're like, oh, I know about your backstory now.
Right. And Lilith was like someone I didn't want to be around.
She was real mean.
She was so mean and arrogant that we realized like we kind of have to rethink who these people are, because they were just battle dialogue. They were just quick quits.
Yeah, their entire scripts were just derived from what would be fun or interesting or weird to hear them say while we're playing the game.
Right. And it was
we
all
weren't really
commentary
thinking about
on the actions, and they weren't really characters. So
Oh,
that
did
was
you write the people we just insulted, Christy?
Christy.
No, there was nothing wrong. There was nothing wrong with what they were, but they needed to be something different. in
Christy
Borderlands
and
2.
Mikey Newman and I wrote most of the first game. So.
Yeah. So it was one of those challenges of like, how do you turn somebody from a set of battle dialogue into this fully realized character?
It was this weird midpoint of like okay, like writing Scooter or Tannis, those are characters that already exist and are very well defined and are very good characters. So that's whatever. If you're failing, you know why you're failing. You're just not being true to those original characters. Tiny Tina, Hammerlock, new characters. If you're failing, it's because the characters aren't inherently good. This it's a character, but it's also not a character. But people still have their own preconceptions about what makes Mordecai. But you also need to give him more of a personality than boom when he shoots a guy in the head. But not enough personality that people get angry that like, what, you totally changed my Mordecai that really more or less just existed in my imagination because he just said things like boom, to the point where the only original Vault Hunter that I feel super 100% confident about was Brick, because his personality in the main game was rah! And in Borderlands 2, he's just the leader of a bunch of bandits who just rah all the time, so like that was fine. But yeah, of all the things that I did in Borderlands 2, I understand the most when people are like upset with like, You know, Roland said it's like Christmas in Borderlands 1 and has having a lot of fun, and in Borderlands 2 he's kind of just a wet blanket that's like spouting exposition. I'm like, yeah, I mean, you're right. He needed to for the plot because you need them to play off one another in interesting ways, ideally.
Yeah.
And I think some of the best scenes, I think you would probably agree because you built them and we've talked about this before. Some of the best scenes in the game are when you come back into the Crimson Raider HQ in Sanctuary and Mordecai and Lilith and Brick and Roland are just talking with each other, and you're getting this sense of like, oh, these dudes were like pals when I wasn't playing as them, and they actually have this relationship built up, and Roland and Brick really don't like each other because of something that happened a long time ago, and there are moments that are nice there.
That's how his dog died.
Yeah, there are moments that are nice there, but I can also understand when somebody's like, my Mordecai wasn't a drunkard, why did you do that? I just go, I'm sorry. Like, you're totally right, but he needed to have something that made him feel different.
Well, we solved all our problems with Roland, didn't we?
Yeesh.
Why did I feel like saying that? I don't know. I'm so mean. Go ahead.
Who's next? What else?
I really like Roland.
Who else should die?
Next question. Yeah.
It's a second row thing.
Ooh, we got a mic.
Is that working? Yeah. Tiny Tina, the DLC, why was it so expensive? Because as a player, you play it and it's
It feels
awesome.
real cheap.
No, it's awesome. Loved it. Really fantastic. Like best DLC of the two whole games, I thought. But as a player, without knowing much about the production, it's like watching a film.
It was rendering all those diamonds at the end.
We pretty much made entirely new art. Like, there's almost no piece of art in Dragon Keep.
How many new monsters, like creatures, like all, like it's a
it's
full set of new content. That's one thing.
like
We
a
had
more?
most of the original Borderlands leads and like best people on the project working on this for a long period of time, and
Yeah, it's
you know,
just-
people like to eat, so I got to pay them. You know,
He
and
said reluctantly.
so we had a lot of people working a long time on it, and it gets really expensive.
Yep.
It's really what it comes down to.
Totally you.
Thank you. Just playing it on PC, the NVIDIA logo is pretty prominent, and physics is a really big part of Borderlands 2 on PC. What does a partnership with someone like NVIDIA actually entail?
Those guys are awesome. So I love NVIDIA, not just because they send us huge volumes of video cards that we get to put in all our developer systems, but they invest a lot of their resources on their dime to develop technologies that we're all using and that the industry uses. They get developer support, and they're at the cutting edge of a lot of innovation in graphics. They're not just taking the specs and making hardware that runs it well and shipping that hardware. They're putting money into it because they believe in the mission of furthering 3D graphics. And so I choose to partner with them because of that. And what that means for us, I mean, there's technology that they've created that makes the game better, even if it's running on the other guy's hardware.
Do they come to you? Or?
Yeah, they will spend their engineering resources on our game. Like almost all of the physics related features, they invested, like most of the effort was on their side. Like they did the engineering, and they did even a lot of the effects. I mean, we had our effects guys working with them.
Yep.
And they can't do it in a vacuum. It's our software, but they put a lot of energy into that. I really admire and respect them. And it's not just limited to things like physics or even specific rendering to our game. I mean, as developer relations goes, and as pushing the technology forward goes, right now I don't know if you know this, but the most, well, actually it's now the second most powerful supercomputer in the world is running with China just made a bigger one, but no, it's a constant arms race. But it's all that that the CUDA platform, and running gazillions of these cores that NVIDIA architected, very powerful computers that are helping not just games but the entire world of technology get better. And so I really appreciate that they exist and that they prioritize the things that they do. So, and they give a lot back to us. I mean, they really do. They really appreciate us in return. So it's a really good partnership. And we support all the platforms. We want to make sure we run really well on Intel integrated graphics. We want to make sure we run really well on hardware that ATI is making, or AMD, I guess, is since the merger. And obviously. Yeah, it's I wouldn't be surprised if on our next gen console games that run on the PlayStation 4 and on the Xbox One or the Xbone. Every time I say Xbox One, I think of that giant black thing, so yeah, the Xbone or the PS4. Like I wouldn't be surprised if when the game launches, when our games launch on there, you might see an NVIDIA logo at the front of that as well. And it's not about the hardware that's inside the machine, it's about the software and the technology in the software. So.
Oh God.
By the way, no money exchanges hands. This is a partnership on similar values and mutual respect and trust and confidence.
And video cards.
We get video cards, but we honestly get that from everybody. Like we get all the hardware we need from anybody who wants to have their stuff or our stuff work on their hardware.
Just up on that side, at the back in the white shirt and the black jacket. And are you wearing? Yep, cool.
Guys, my favourite part of the game is the visual feedback of the damage we're doing, and how you calculate element damage and class mods and mods. How the hell do you guys do that? I don't want your boring answer, but is there some elaborate algorithms that?
Yeah, the damage pipeline is the touchiest part of the code. And what that means is all the various things that go into calculating the number that eventually pops out of the enemy. And this formula is probably 20 different expressions, with pluses and divisions and multiplications and tons of freaking parentheses. Yep. And so anytime we're like, hey, we need a new damage thing to go in, the coders are like, oh my God, are you serious? So yeah, there's this really, really involved formula, and every part of the game hooks into this and adds an additional element in terms of okay, so they're doing fire damage, so that goes here, and then we have to multiply by the resistance of the enemy. And so they're flesh, so they get this multiplier, and then, but that hit an armor piece on his arm, so now we have to multiply by armor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And ultimately we get a number, and it pops out. And then you guys on the forum say, I don't think that's right.
And sometimes you're right.
And sometimes you are right. We've found bugs post-launch where we're like, crap, we just took into account the damage resistance twice in this particular case.
Conference call, remember?
Yeah, things like the conference call that were multiplying multiple times. And so not to tease you guys, because sometimes you're right, but oftentimes it's the number that we actually can give you is as accurate as it can be. It's not necessarily exactly what happens.
I don't know if you know this. I created the very first damage algorithm, and it was very simple and very elegant.
I'm sure it was.
And then I handed it off, and it became a mess of horrifying.
And we rebuilt that for Borderlands 2 as well.
Yeah. Just quickly, how much time do we have? Last question.
Oh.
Come on. That's okay. We can all go to the bar afterwards and.
Yes.
Yay! Alcohol! Or not. You in the hat.
I can't think of a nice way to phrase this, but is there anyone or any role that isn't allowed to contribute to the creative concept process?
Not really, honestly.
No,
we've gotten really good feedback from QA testers and audio dudes about
we
anything.
we tell marketing to go to hell.
Yeah.
What if you had a janitor, a Matt Damon type character who you walk in and he's just written this incredible script?
Oh, that would be amazing.
I would just kill him and take a picture of it. I'd be like, look at what I did. Raise, please.
The dream is to have as flat of a structure as possible. The dream is that we want to work with and be surrounded by talented people, and we want to all be inspired by everyone else's energy and momentum towards the entertainment. So that's the dream, and I try to I try to lead that culture, you know, so that everyone feels that, hey, if I've got an idea and it's worthy and it passes the test of the group, then it deserves to reach the customer. And it doesn't matter whether you've been at the studio for 10 minutes or 10 years, or whether you have a vice president in your title, or whether you're, you know, a junior or intern. You could be an intern, and you can have massive effect on the game if you bring it.
That's a good note to go out on. Listen, your tickets are actually drink cards, so we want you to toddle off to the bar with us. Everyone give them a huge round of applause.
I'll go over there too. Like, I'll go over to the bar.
Yeah, I'll be there.